This is College of Circles. I'm Jeff, and today we're looking back at the Fizban's Treasury of Dragons Collector's Edition Miniatures box. This is the 22nd set in the Icons of the Realms line and contains 46 miniatures available in booster packs, 8 promotional figures, 1 Collector's Edition exclusive, and 2 premium sets. This line was unique in that it was the first to have super boosters, extra large booster packs containing huge scale figures. Once we get looking at this set, you'll see why. First up is the Egg Hunter Adult. For a small figure, this does have a surprisingly good mold. However, the paint job leaves a little to be desired in the details. Still, this is a solid figure, versatile enough to be a stand-in for many giant insects, and enough detail to trigger your endomophobic players. A solid start to this line. Here we have the Dragon Blessed. This is a solid figure for NPCs and offers a diversity that is often lacking in D&D. The mold and paint is a little muddled, but still a significant improvement over past sets. The plastic is soft, causing perpetual lean back at his legs, which is common for Wizkids products. Next up is the Dragon Chosen. Most of the comments from the Dragon Blessed apply here as well, although the details are a little easier to read with the Dragon Chosen, especially in the face. This is a female figure, and it's always nice to have additional female figures. The genericness of this figure works to its advantage, and as it is easy enough to be any martial character or a deep gnome or even a Dorger. On to the Dragon Speaker. This little guy has something in his hands, but I can't tell what it is. It's clear by now which figures they spent time on and which ones they didn't. The Dragon Speaker has soft, bendy plastic, hard to read details, and is pretty basic, but trust me, this set is going to get a lot better. The Horde Scarab would be a frustrating figure if the rest of the set wasn't so great. A couple throwaway figures is no problem when you're guaranteed to get 2 or 3 great figures in a booster box. On the plus side, this guy will probably never break. On the downside, you'll want to break it every time you try to lift it off of a game map due to its lack of grip points. It really is a little more than a token. All right. It's always nice to get extra kobolds, and this set provides 3 of them. The first up is the Kobold Zombie. The details in this figure are there if you have good eyesight. You can just make out the exposed bones, but if I wasn't told this was a zombie, I wouldn't see it. There is a whole collection of wormlings in this set. Here we have the Deep Dragon Wormling. The paint on this is excellent as his eyes almost appear to glow. His stand in a slightly dynamic pose, and this is a good start to our dragon nursery. And one of my favorite characters I've created was a kobold ninja named Scrollcraw. And man, I wish I had the kobold rogue when I was playing him. He stands with his twin daggers ready for murder and mayhem. His little ears sticking through the robe is a nice touch. Next up is the Green Guard Drake. His hunched over, slinking pose shows he's ready for business. It's this pose that makes the figure because the paint is very basic. The second entry in our nursery is the Blue Dragon Wormling. And this guy is absolutely adorable. The sculpt has his head cocked to the side like an inquisitive puppy. With his wings arched up, he's ready to play fetch. I love it when the figure can capture a personality. Now we have a curious addition here with the Vine Blight. We just got a Vine Blight in 2020 with the Fangs and Talons set, and while the sculpt on the newer figure is an improvement, I don't believe this is the figure people were clamoring to have redone. There are some nice detail in the long fingers and in the body. This is a solid, yet somewhat unnecessary figure. The Comalinth comes to us from what appears to be a recent fishing trip. There are some nice details in the musculature of his torso and in his weapon. He's carrying something in his left hand, but after a minute of examination, I have failed my nature check and still can't say what it is. With the Gem Dragons, we're getting a lot more of the clear-colored plastic figures, and I am not a huge fan of these. The Emerald Dragon Wormling is decent, but the lack of paint or contrast leaves it as just a small lump of plastic. Where the Blue Wormling makes me think of a playful puppy, the Emerald Wormling reminds me of the Monopoly thimble. Emerald Dragon done right, this time in the form of a Dragonborn. His pose suggests he's enjoying a conversation in a tavern, while the mug and roams makes him versatile enough to be an NPC bar patron or a PC, perhaps a Dragonborn drunken master monk. I really enjoyed the paint scheme on this Amethyst Dragonborn. The metallic armor really pops. The only criticism is the soft plastic sword because it causes it to droop quite a bit. Solid figure overall, and further proof that gem dragons should have been painted, not clear plastic. Here we have a Hydroloth with some excellent detail on the sculpt, particularly in the eyes and mouth. The teeth feel sharp, as do the spikes that line the Hydroloth's back. At first, I thought there was some solid detail in the chest paint, but on further review, I believe these are areas that were missed with the lighter color. The Draconic Shard is another entry in the clear plastic line, but this time it includes a long sword, which only highlights the need for these figures to be painted. The sword itself pops out, but it may as well be sitting on an ooze. The last of the kobolds in this line, here we have a kobold warlock. With a staff in one hand and a fireball in the other, his pose is truly dynamic. A good pose can really put a figure over the top. The staff is soft, and at first I thought it was a bow, some straightening required. So I have a dilemma reviewing some of these figures, including this one, the Draconian Infiltrator. This is an excellent figure and a significant upgrade over pre-2020 figures. But after reviewing the Spelljammer set, I have increased expectations for what can be done on these medium figures. Nevertheless, this is a solid figure with versatility to be used as a Dragonborn or a Lizard Folk. The green dragon Wormling doesn't quite have the personality of his blue cousin, but he does bring the sass with his shrieking mouth. This figure gets the job done with its paint and sculpt, but is not a standout. The black dragon Wormling is a standout, or at least a stand-up. The pose brings the fun to this figure as he looks ready to pounce on some poor creature. And while reviewing him, his feet separated from the base, an occasional problem with Wizkids figures. The Draconian Foot Soldier is another solid entry in the lineup. Parts of the figure feel squishy, but everything is holding up well, including the sword. There appears to be some light spots in the paint, and I would have liked some more detail in the face, but overall a good figure with a strong pose. The Draconian Mage has many of the details that were lacking in the Foot Soldier. There's a lot of texture in the sculpt and the armor, and the potbelly is a nice touch. This is one mage living off more than good berries. The Draconian Mastermind comes in next and has some really fine detail in the body and armor. You have to look really close to see any detail in the face, however. The pose is adequate, and the paint job is what really makes this figure stand out. The Dragon gives us a good example of how much detail can be packed into a tight space. Although it is a large figure, the head is about the same size as the heads of the Mage, Foot Soldier, and Masterminds, yet there is so much more detail in the face of the Dragon. This is an easily overlooked figure, but really terrific when you start to look close. The first of the huge figure comes in with the young Moonstone Dragon, and she really illustrates what I've been talking about with the clear plastic. This is a gorgeous figure with intricate scales throughout the body, and the clear plastic is only used on the skin of the wings. The figure's pose is dynamic, and the sparing use of clear plastic allows the whole figure to be clearly seen. The young Crystal Dragon also shows what can be done with clear plastic. Although the entire figure appears to be in clear plastic, the body is not translucent, allowing the details in the sculpt to shine. There is some accent paint in the toes, wingtips, and jaw. Overall, this figure pops and is another solid entry. The Metallic Peacekeeper is probably the most intricate figure in the line, and with its thin, soft plastic, is starting to lean after several months. There are some interesting details in the design of the figure and creative use of clear plastic in just the torso. Without a close examination, the clear plastic would appear to be paint. Next up, the Draconian Dreadnought. Now, a small complaint before the good stuff. A persistent problem in this line is the lack of paint on the dragon's eyes. Just a little black would really make them pop. As such, they are barely visible slits in the mold. Otherwise, the Dreadnought has a strong, aggressive pose with tin swords and outstretched wings. The Dragonfluff Crafter uses its sculpt and paint to tell a little story. The giant's head screams in pain as his body transforms into a draconic figure. Splatters of green paint in the flesh parts highlight the gradual transformation. Another nice detail, the nails in the club head are protruding through either side. Nice touch. The Gemstalker tells a different story, of a horrific creature lurking in the shadow, ready to grab its prey. When I used this figure during a game, the players picked it up to pass it around and check him out. The design is simple and effective with just enough detail to suggest something lurking in the shadows. The Dragon Blood ooze is, well, it's an ooze. There isn't much required of a miniature ooze, and this one clears the bar. Also, an excellent use of the clear plastic. I am so happy they included Fizban the Fabulous. It's nice to get figures of the well-known D&D characters. The sculpt and paint are well done here, and it appears he is smiling underneath that handlebar mustache. Another versatile figure, which I'm always looking for. He could be Fizban or some generic druid character. When I first got Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, I loved the Brain in the Jar and was disappointed it was not included in that miniature set. That omission has been rectified here. Simple, but everything I would want from this figure. Here we have a Dragonborn of Tiamat, a rare figure, and you can really tell Wizkids puts more effort into the rare figures. The armor has quite a bit of detail with painted gold flourishes. Like many of the figures, mine is developing a lean to the left, perhaps a failed strength check carrying that battle axe. The Dragonborn of Bahamut comes in next. Everything about this figure accentuates his regal stature, from the outstretched wings to the way he holds his shield. The paint job is solid throughout, except those eyes. Why couldn't they paint the eyes? Oh look, they can paint eyes on a Dragonborn. It's not much, but I'll take it. The Dragonborn of Sardior is an interesting figure with his levitating sword and simple robes. The Dragonborn himself is just slightly levitated in quite a confident pose. I, like most DMs, do love my mimics. Here we get two of them. The first is a wash basin mimic. So many maps have wash basins in them, and few players would suspect anything is amiss until they walk by it. The figure itself is very well done, with the water splash and flailing tons signifying things went downhill for a party quickly and violently. Remember those super boosters I mentioned? This is why they were necessary. The Dragonbone Golem is just shy of being a premium figure. The detail in the ropes throughout his body is terrific, especially as the ropes go through the eye sockets. The pose is dynamic and exciting. The only issue with this figure is the soft plastic is leaving the left wing drooping substantially. The second and most devious of the mimics comes in the form of the Horde Mimic. Yeah, I got my players with this one. The first session after I got this set, they had to go into a cavern populated by the aforementioned Gemstalker and the upcoming Eye Drake. The Eye Drake was guarding a rundown building in the cavern, and the players were so excited when they peered through the hole to see a pile of gold. One player managed to sneak his way into the building, never suspecting the pile of gold was actually a huge mimic. The look on his face when I plopped this figure down next to his mini is a core DMing memory for me. Most of the Wizkids figures are faithful to the artwork presented in the books. This is one time they should have made some changes. The young sea serpent is such a necessary figure and fills a much needed gap. The body has a nice shape, although the detail in the scales is lacking. The water with just a hint of white water is a really nice touch. But that face, that silly clown face, I can't look at that face without chuckling, which was not the intended effect. The young amethyst dragon gives us another example of how to do the clear plastic well. By using two different colors, this figure has highlights and details some of the other figures were lacking, and its eyes have color. A cool, solid figure with a tongue almost as good as the mimics. The Dragonflesh Abomination is so delightfully gross. It is mostly just a really well done green dragon, and then you see the long, stringy hair and the human-like fleshy torso. The details are subtle but effective and really hint at the human transformed into a dragon. Eye Drake, you say? Yes, please. A beholder that dreamt of being a dragon, this figure captures the creature perfectly. The mouth containing the central eye is fantastic. The sweet potato-like body gives it just a touch of humor, but the rest of the figure is terrifying. The wings require some massaging, but other than that, this figure is nearly perfect. The young sapphire dragon is a bit of a letdown. The only accent on this solid piece of plastic is a few stars painted on its black. There isn't a single detail in the face that can be seen from even a foot away. Considering this figure would be the main item in a super booster, and what we've seen in other super figures, there's no excuse for this figure to be so bland. Finishing the booster available figures on a high note, we now have the Dragon L. This figure is truly remarkable. It is comparable in size to the adult green dragon, which was selling for $90. The Dragon L has one of the best poses of any dragon mini, and some nice detail work in the face, horns, and wings. In-game, the Dragon L is an option for find greater steed. If your DM says otherwise, find a new DM. And I built my current character as a bard just so I can get this guy before any paladin. The promotional figures consist of 8 gem dragon wormlings, 2 each for crystal, amethyst, moonstone, and topaz. The moonstones are the standouts due to the sparing use of the clear plastic. Each one has a unique pose, and I now have more dragon wormlings than I'll ever know what to do with. Perhaps the designers could have dropped half the wormlings and included a couple Ascendant Dragon Monks or Drake Warden Rangers. For the Collector's Edition exclusive figure, we have the Hollow Dragon. Wow, 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 wow. This is an awesome figure, and maybe the most impressive figure in this set. This is by far the best use of clear plastic, as the entire body is a translucent flame. The profile is low, most likely for ease of packing, but the inclusion of a small treasure chest she's guarding makes what could have been a boring pose really dynamic in its storytelling. The figure could easily be a $100 premium and set the bar high for exclusive figures to follow. The first of the premium sets is the Draco Hydra. In any other set, this would be the best miniature available, but here there are just too many standout figures. Each of the 6 heads are detailed and face a different direction. The body and wings have a high level of detail. The pose is excellent as it looks to be soaring down on its victim. An incredible figure, but hard to justify the $100 price tag considering the other figures available in this set. The second premium figure and final figure in this set is the Elder Brain Dragon. Now, I got this set halfway through running a Mind Flayer campaign at a local game store, and on the night I pulled this figured out, another DM paused her game to come take a look at it. There is so much detail packed into the sculpt of this mini, and the pose is pitch perfect. This isn't a dragon flying high, it is lurching through the Underdark, beaten by a cosmic parasite it couldn't comprehend. This is the monster other monsters fear, and the figure captures that story. Alright, so that is the Fizban's Treasury of Dragons Collector's Edition box of miniatures. This is a really great set. Now, my personal favorite is the Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, but if there was any kind of possible objective measurement for how to rate minis, then Fizban's would win hands down. The super boosters definitely help out a lot. The amount you get, the amount I got for $750, whatever I paid for this, is truly remarkable. The Draco Hydra, the Elder Brain Dragon, the Dragonelle, the Eye Drake. There are just so many figures that just pop out and stand out on my shelves, and everything is sized to work perfectly in game on an actual battle map. I can't say enough great things about this set. As soon as the set became available, I bought a booster brick, which is 8 packs, including 2 of the super boosters. And as soon as I saw what was in the set, I immediately went online and ordered the collector's edition. So can't recommend this enough. You can still find it on Amazon, and if you haven't already purchased most of these items, I would highly recommend putting the money into this. This is, depending on your preference, this is probably the best set that Wizkids has ever put out. So that was my review of the Fizban's Treasury of Dragons Collector's Edition miniature box. Thanks for listening. This is College of Circles. I'm Jeff, and we'll see you at the next table.